Hi, everyone. Thank you for being a part of Healthy Child, Healthy World's first Lunch and Learn webinar. I'm Sarah Smith, the editorial director of Kiwi Magazine, and I'm here today to welcome the inspiring and deeply committed speakers we'll be hearing from, as well as take your questions later on. And you can type those in at any time, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Now, I'm honored to introduce Elizabeth Rome, actress, mother, and Healthy Child, Healthy World supporter. You know her face from TV and movies, but what you may not know is about her lifelong commitment to healthy living, inspired by her late mother and her 2-year-old daughter. She'll tell you more about our other speaker today, Healthy Child, Healthy World's Executive Director, Rachel Sarnoff. But I can tell you for certain that they are both moms who make a difference. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Rome. Thanks for that introduction, Sarah. I'm a new member of Healthy Child's Luminary Board. It's been a couple of months, but this organization has already gotten into my heart and soul and is a big part of my life. To tell you a little bit about me and what motivated my involvement, my mother was the typical classic hippie chick. She was totally committed to a non-toxic upbringing for me, and she really walked the talk. She was 100% devoted. Even by, I'd say about 7 years ago, she was living a totally sustainable life, meaning her carbon footprint was almost zero. So she was very committed to holistic medicine. She, ate what she grew. She bought non-toxic cleaners. She avoided pesticides. She was the total leader in all of this, and at a very early age it became a big part of my world. I mean, I was the kind of kid who ate Tiger bars instead of Twinkies, much to my dismay. And, I just think that it became something I was very conscious of, from the very beginning, just to leave a small impact on the planet. But it really wasn't until I became a mom myself when I realized how amazing my mother was, which I'm sure all of you can relate to, because it takes being a mom to know how hard it was for our parents. And when Easton was born about 3 years ago, I realized how easily and naturally it came to me, and therefore began to give my mother her due credit. The big part of that was this healthy environment that she had, raised me in. And as I began to find that path for my daughter, Easton, who some of you may be aware of, I realized the path she had laid down for me was very solid. And one example in particular I want to bring up is that Easton had a lot of respiratory problems when she, the first couple of years. And we brought her to her pediatrician, who prescribed steroids through a nebulizer, suggested that we have her inhale cortisone, which, as you can imagine, really wasn't a great idea as far as I was concerned. And there was a little conflict in my household because my husband hadn't grown up in the way that I had, and we really debated it. But after a while, and I especially talked to my mother, the leading hippie chick, she recommended that I research food allergies, which I did. And then after we discovered 3 really significant ones, we eliminated them. And now my daughter is fine and doesn't inhale steroids, and we avoided all of that toxicity. So the point I want to make is that this is the life that Healthy Child, Healthy World is promoting, and it was a world that I felt very comfortable in. But approximately 2 years ago, my mother died. She passed away suddenly, and it was beyond tragic. But one of the things that, I've really felt missing is this leadership in my life that she provided, besides just the daily longing for your mommy. But, I discovered Healthy Child, Healthy World around the time that I lost my mom, and it was really like coming home. It was a language that I spoke. It was a world that I was already walking and talking in, like my mom had taught me. But it was a world that is ever-changing and getting more transparent and exposed, and I find that I constantly need answers to all of these many questions, because it's complicated, right? It's really complicated being a parent and being committed to a non-toxic life for your children so that they have the right to be healthy. We don't even know half of the things that we're exposing them to because, the world is not transparent. And Healthy Child, Healthy World has really stepped into my life and into my world with a million answers to my millions of questions in, this complicated quest of parenting. And it's been a real inspiration to keep creating this life for my family that's fully conscious and non-toxic, just the way that I was raised. But like I said, my mom was a leader, and I'm still learning. So, in that way, the organization has kind of become a surrogate mom, and I love them, and I'm so happy to be involved with them, and I turn to them frequently, as we are here today. And, now I have a healthy child who's living in a healthy world, and I want to continue to promote that. And I feel the support of this organization is just so exciting. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I love that we're all here for this Lunch and Learn webinar. I think it's so cool. So I just want to turn this now to Rachel Lincoln Sarnoff. So stay tuned. We're going to have a Q&A afterwards. And now I'd like to welcome the Executive Director and CEO of Healthy Child, Healthy World, Rachel Lincoln Sarnoff.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. That I read that story, you guys, but hearing it from Elizabeth is so moving, and I am just so honored that we get to be a part of your life, and thank you for being a part of our world. So before we get started, I want to let this really short video, it's like 3 minutes, and make sure your sound is on because there's audio. But I just want to let this video tell you a little story. It's not a bedtime story for children. We call it a wake-up story for adults. So here we go. So that video, I don't know, I've seen it probably, you know, at least 5,000 times at this point. And it still is just so moving to me. And the idea that nothing is more important than the health of your child is really, you know, it's just the backbone of what Healthy Child, Healthy World is all about. And unfortunately, I'm getting, my phone is still ringing when it shouldn't be, so I apologize for that, you guys. Here we go. So at Healthy Child, Healthy World, this is, you know, it's really a simple statement, but it really is what inspires us every single day to protect kids from harmful chemicals. And when people ask me about, you know, what is Healthy Child, Healthy World, I really, there's so much that we do that it's hard to bring it down. But in a nutshell, if you want to tell your friends and tweet this and have them log in, we are a grassroots campaign that empowers parents through information. So we're going to talk about some of that information today. These are my kids. This is how I, you know, basically got involved. I didn't know about the organization when my first two were little. I thought that I was raising them healthy. I kind of had a similar background to Elizabeth's, where I, you know, grew up with a garden. We grew a lot of our own food. We, you know, did little hippie things like thanking the plants when we cut them. But I didn't know that there were hidden chemicals in some of the other foods that they were eating. I didn't know that our household cleaners could contain chemicals. I really didn't think about these things. I didn't think about the shampoo that I was using or what I was using to clean the tub. So when I discovered Healthy Child, Healthy World in 2006, I was pregnant with my third child, and that's Chloe, the little one. You know, the organization really just completely transformed the way that my husband and I view our responsibility to our kids, to our community, and to our world, really. But as I went through that transformation, I was met with some resistance, as I'm sure some of you have been met with, and you know, people, my friends and my family would say things like, we grew up with chemicals and we're okay. So today, I kind of want to talk about that idea. Are we okay? Because I think this is something that we're all faced with. What, you know, everybody wants to understand more, and I think we need some kind of concrete reasons to talk about why it's important to really create a healthier world for our children. So as you saw in the video, babies are now born pre-polluted with as many as 200 chemicals in their bodies from prenatal exposure. There are about 80,000 chemicals registered for commerce, and few of them have been tested for children's safety. None of them have been tested for interaction with other chemicals. And these chemicals affect infants and children so much more dramatically than they do adults, and many have been linked to really serious problems. Today, 1 out of every 91 American children, 1 out of 70 boys is diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And if you think about how many kids that is, you know, just think about how many kids. My daughter goes to an elementary school where there are 500 kids. Just think about that in the terms of the number of classes. It's just a staggering statistic. Even more scary, girls are beginning menstruation as young as age 7. Some have even gotten breast cancer as early as 10. Pediatric cancer is now the leading disease killer of children. Rates have risen nearly 30% over the last 30 years. And, you know, maybe some of you listening are not even parents. Maybe you don't have nieces and nephews, but raising healthy children is still really important to all of us. Kids are, they're only 30% of our population, but they are 100% of our future. And the small steps that we're talking about can really add up to create a better future for all of us. So sometimes when I get this, okay, what are we going to do now feeling, and people come to me, there's a great example that I like to talk about, and that is lead. Lead, you know, this example made an incredible impact on my generation. Lead is a neurotoxin which affects brain development. In 1976, the EPA began phasing out lead from gas. So that was a federal action, basically. And since that time, there's been a 90% decline in children's blood lead levels, a 90% decline in the cases of lead poisoning. And here's an interesting part. There's been a 6-point increase in the average IQ of American children. So what's next? What's our lead? I think, and Healthy Child, Healthy World really thinks, that pesticides are a great place to start. Pesticides have been linked to both pediatric cancer and behavioral problems. While in the 1970s we cleaned up the gas we put in our cars, today we really need to clean up the food that we put in our bodies. A great example, conventional apples now top the list of the most contaminated produce. One apple can contain the residue of 48 different pesticides. So an apple a day, I don't think it keeps the doctor away anymore, not unless you're eating organic. And organic is this is a great way to start. So eating organic means you're eating foods that are regulated by the government to contain no pesticides or chemicals. In 2005, Healthy Child supported a study which found that after just 4 days, basically a long weekend of eating organic food, there was virtually no trace of pesticides in the test group of kids. It's pretty amazing. So there's always this question too, can you afford it? So let's think about milk, for example. The difference between organic and conventional milk tallies up to about $2 a week. So what I ask myself is, would I give up that one specialty latte, that one cappuccino a week to make sure that what my kids drink every day for that week is pesticide free? I do, and that $2 that I'm taking and investing in organic milk, I'm really investing in my children's future. No one can do everything, and everyone can do something. That really is our theme, and I think one of the important things to realize is that not knowing this stuff before, as I didn't know this stuff when I had my first 2 kids. I felt for a while like I was a bad parent for not knowing, and really, you're not. At Healthy Child, the conversation is not about guilt. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not about what you did in the past. It's what you're going to do today. It's what you're going to do in the future. You didn't teach your children to walk in one day, and nor should you expect yourself to change everything overnight. We talk about making today your starting point and taking baby steps towards protecting your family. And that's where this idea of no one can do everything, everyone can do something comes in. Those are the words we really live by, and I think those are the words that help a lot of us keep going on this path. So right today, Healthy Child, Healthy World has a book. We have a website, healthychild.org. We have an app. You can take our reference guides on the go with you. This app can even save you money, which is amazing. Our 5 easy steps are really the backbone of Healthy Child, Healthy World, and they really basically provide the support for all of our programs. They're pretty easy to go through on our site, but really in a nutshell, it's manage pests safely. That means avoid pesticides, use other alternatives to kind of keep your house pest free, use non-toxic products, clean up your indoor air. That can be as easy as just opening your windows for 10 minutes a day, or taking off your shoes when you walk into a room. Eat healthy, be wise with plastics, try not to microwave in plastics, try to reduce your use of plastics. And really walk the talk, do these things and tell other people about it. Take off your shoes when you go into someone else's home and use that as sort of a reason to, talk about these steps you're taking in your own life. We have some programs that are really specific to moms. I'm sure there's a lot of moms listening today. This program, Mom on a Mission, was inspired by our advisory board member, Erin Brockovich, and it really recognizes parents who are changing their communities to protect children and families, so kind of taking it beyond their own homes and into their communities. And this is something I would urge all of you to check out. I think we are all moms on a mission, and I think we all know somebody too who really deserves to be recognized. So you can submit and nominate on our website at healthychild.org. So take a look at that. Healthy Child, Healthy World is really driving change. We were part of a coalition that was led by the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics that sort of came to a great conclusion this year when Johnson & Johnson announced that they were going to phase out formaldehyde-releasing preservatives in their baby products. So that was a huge victory this year for all of us who were part of that campaign. Today, our petition targeting Campbell's is on track to record 25,000 signatures. and has led to an ongoing discussion with the company about phasing out BPA from the lining of their cans. So that's what we do, and I guess the question now is, what can you do? So if you're wondering that in terms of Healthy Child, sign up for our newsletter at healthychild.org, host a healthy home party. You can share what you've learned with your family and friends. And just a little side note here, so a lot of these slides show pictures of moms, but dads are important to Healthy Child as well. Moms are our key core audience, and I think because they make 85% of the buying decisions in the average American household, which is woo for us, it makes sense that we start with moms, that we inform moms about making healthier choices for their families. Our organization started with one unthinkable event, really, the loss of a child. And in 1991, Colette Chuda died from a rare non-hereditary form of cancer that was linked to pesticides. Her parents, Jim and Nancy Chuda, transformed their grief into action. They met with other parents at kitchen tables and in living rooms. They shared what they had learned about the impacts of chemicals on children's health. And these meetings really became a movement when they formed Healthy Child, Healthy World in 1992. Next year will begin our 20th anniversary year, so we will see a lot of new projects on that. So 20 years later, Healthy Child, Healthy World supporters include scientists, physicians, educators, and activists like Michelle Obama, who this year named us a favorite cause. We ask that you join them and you join her by supporting Healthy Child, Healthy World. We are a nonprofit, and we depend on your support to continue our work and to be your advocate for children's environmental health. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. That's something that I really want to have you take away from this conversation today, because, as we talked about initially, nothing is more important than the health of your child and all of our children. So thank you so much for listening to that presentation. And now, I believe we will open this up to questions. Sarah, do you have questions for us?
We do. Hi, everyone. This is Sarah from Kiwi again, and we're getting some great questions coming in. So please, everyone out there, feel free to type them in at any time, and we'll get to as many of them as we can with Rachel Lincoln Sarnoff and Elizabeth Rome. So let's start, you guys, with talking to people maybe who don't understand how important this movement is without turning them off. Rachel, you gave that great example about taking off your shoes at someone's home and using that as a an easy conversation starter. And can you talk a little bit more about how to make this palatable and understandable for people who are even newer to it maybe than some of us?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to make it a conversation. I'm kind of shameless. I use every opportunity, not just with my kids and the, like reusable lunch packaging materials that I send with them every day, or the, the wax paper bags that I use instead of plastic, but also on, for me. So if I'm wearing lipstick and somebody says great color, I'll say, did you know it's lead free? Like you can find nail polish without formaldehyde, you can find all these things. So I kind of go into the girly with a lot of that stuff as an entry point. And also just, it doesn't have to be scary. I mean, I think that's the important takeaway from Healthy Child. It really doesn't. It can be friendly, it can be a conversation, and it can be ongoing. It doesn't have to be everything overnight. It can really be baby steps, and everybody is doing what they can, and I think we need to really honor that and respect that and support it. And as we do, we all kind of grow and continue on this path.
That's great. Elizabeth, have you found that people are responsive, when they hear about your interest in this world, and do you have any advice for people?
Well, I think it's like any seemingly big mountain that you have yet to tackle. You think, who am I to be able to tackle this mountain? You feel ill-equipped, uneducated about it, and it just seems almost insurmountable. And I kind of agree with Rachel, whether it's, whatever it is in your life that you have yet to start, just put one foot in front of the other. Don't overwhelm yourself with the mountain. Just start with one simple thing. So maybe that's not having, it's cleaning the house with non-toxics, or just doing organic food and finding a way to make it affordable. But just start today. Don't start with the idea that you're going to do it all, but just start today. And I think that that's a really good motto to live by, whether it's, in your relationships or in anything.
That's great advice, really inspiring too, to remember to just start with one thing. We have a question from our audience specifically about how can we get our signatures on that Campbell's petition. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about that, but also about making our voices heard by companies in general. Are there other ways that we can be sure that people out there know that we care?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can still see my screen. So what I'm going to do is click out of this presentation, and then I am going to show you this page. So hopefully you can see it. But if you go to change.org and you search Healthy Child, you'll find our Campbell's petition. You can also click through from our site, but that might be the fastest way to do it. And that is a great way to make your voice heard. We do petitions, at least one petition every month, and we're really getting some amazing traction. But also, make your voice heard by what you buy. We have these great pocket guides. You can download them to your phone, or you can print them out from our site that have different recommendations in terms of when you're in the store, what to look for, and it's not just specific, it's not labels necessarily, or sorry, not brands necessarily, but also how to read a label, how to figure out what's in your products. I think that those, the more that we buy healthier products, the more brands will be convinced to shift in that direction. If we all stopped buying Johnson's baby shampoo, which I think that's part of this movement, is people are really starting to realize that it's important for us to understand how important what we buy is and how we can really vote with our dollars, really.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about right now answers a question that we just got in about knowing what's the safest things to buy. But I do want to read this question to you too, because I think she makes a great point. She says that it seems that a lot of companies are promoting natural items, but when you research these items, especially ones that are geared towards babies, there are a lot of additives. So how do you know what you're buying is the safest ones that you can use? So I think your buying guides are a good answer to that, but is there anything else along those lines you want to speak to about that sort of natural claim and looking into that a little deeper?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of words being thrown around. Natural is one, organic is one. But if you look for the USDA certified organic label, especially on food, that's something that is, really backed by the government, and that is something that you can really trust. Other than that, I think you really do have to read your labels, and you have to, for me, like if I'm looking at, a baby shampoo and I flip it over and it says natural, and then on the back it says fragrance, that's like a red flag for me, because fragrance typically is, if it says, essential oils, or is listing the ingredients of the fragrance, that's one thing. But if it just says fragrance or artificial fragrance, that's a word that manufacturers can put on a label that can reflect a whole group of chemicals, and they really, if they call them fragrance, they don't have to list what they are at this point, although there's some move to get that changed. But Elizabeth, I'm curious, what's your red flag? Do you have one of those too?
Well, I was going to say, I think that, keeping things really simple is important. So I find, you guys are a really good reference point for me as to what brands to buy. And that information is available through you guys. So you can, I look to you for that guidance, as well as, like you said, there are, if you don't see that it's approved organic, then I tend to just avoid it, because I'm not smart enough to be able to identify or, read the fine line, between the fine lines of, things that can be listed. I don't really know what certain things mean or don't mean, but I do know what to avoid, which is if it's not, certified, then it's complicated, and I tend to just avoid complicated.
That's good advice. Keep it simple. And when you keep it simple, you probably are also looking at things that have fewer ingredients, which is always a smart move, I would think.
Yeah, we did a video that was a lot of our just moms everywhere sent in these great little clips where they basically said, I'm a mom on a mission because, and they all had their different reasons. And that video will be going up on our Facebook page, I think, today. But one of the women who submitted a video, and actually she works with us, she said, I'm a mom on a mission because you shouldn't have to be a toxicologist to raise healthy kids. And I just thought that was so brilliant. You know, that really, you really shouldn't. You should be able to read a label and understand everything that's in a product. And at this point, you know, we're sort of partially there. But I think those are the types of products that I tend to lean towards. Those that I can flip over, the words that I understand, and I say, okay, that goes in my basket.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I love what that mom said also. That's really great thing to yeah, she's so right. We have another question from the audience. Someone who's asking, buying chemical-free products is important, but it can also be expensive because then it can extend to organic sheets and then mattresses and furniture and cleaning products. And, of course, we all need to buy a lot of cleaning products when there are kids around, too. So she's wondering, this listener, Samantha, is wondering if we have any suggestions on how to prioritize the products, keeping kids' health as the priority. So, you know, we care about our kids' health, so, you know, where should we start? What should we prioritize?
Mm-hmm. I think that's really a decision for each individual family. I will say for me, I prioritize my kids' food because that's what goes into their bodies. But then you also, it depends on the age of your children. You know, for example, if you are pregnant or you have a small child and you're making the decision on a crib mattress, that's a really important place to start as well, because small children and infants spend so much time on mattresses that if you're buying conventional are typically pretty heavy with flame retardant. So we're really conscious of that. I mean, most of us at Healthy Child, Healthy World are moms, and you know, most of us are on a budget, as most of us are these days. So we're pretty conscious of that. And so what we tend to do is, like when we wrote about mattresses, which we've done several times, we've written about, you know, what to do at different price levels. So if you can afford to buy an entirely organic mattress, that's great. But if you can't, what are the things you can do? Well, you can get a mattress cover. You can let the mattress off gas outside for several, you know, for a significant amount of time. There are other things that you can do. So I think just kind of you know, go to our site. We have our search. You can see here our search. You can search mattresses and basically get all of that information. And really what, you know, what is the most important to you, I think depends. It's less of a blanket statement than we can make it. It depends more on the age of your children and sort of the, you know, your personal decisions as a family.
Great. That's a great point. We have a question from someone about wondering your thoughts on the apple juice and grape juice issue. And I believe she's talking maybe about the arsenic in apple juice that's been in the news lately. Brenda, if I'm wrong, the listener who typed that in, you know, let me know. I'm wondering if there's any insight you can give us on that.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a really interesting issue, and I really want to pull up this story so you guys can see. Because we just published something on this, I believe on Monday, the piece that I wrote came up. So give me 1 second so I can pull that up for you guys and you can see.
That's great. Of course, you guys are all over it.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, one of the takeaways really for me was, well, interestingly, there were 2 organic brands on that list. And if you look at the list, and you can actually download the list, there's a link to Consumer Reports, and you can download it. And I think it's really interesting for parents to really look at this. So that was one thing, and that frightened me because, you know, I feel that organic is something that, you know, is certified organic. Our government is really behind that standard and is working to enforce that standard. So that was frightening. I do think that there is a lot of attention on this story, and I think that the regulations will be strengthened. But take a look. The other takeaway from that story is simply that, and this is something that we've talked about a lot at Healthy Child, our kids are drinking too much juice. Juice is linked to obesity. It's linked to different problems, and our kids basically are drinking too much of it. So if there's one thing that I would suggest to parents is really look at the amount of juice that your kids are drinking. We looked closely at the levels of arsenic, and just so parents don't totally freak out, these are they're not levels that are poisonous. Okay, so don't worry that you're poisoning your kids, but they are levels that we need to be careful about. And also, again, as we talked about in the first presentation, we in this country or in this world, we don't tend to look at how things interact. We don't tend to look at how some toxic substances in this category can be interacting with others. So I think that it's important to really just keep paying attention to this story, and also to limit the juice consumption.
Right, great. And that I see is on the Healthy Child site too, so people can go and read that for more in depth. That's great. Can you guys talk a little bit about, Elizabeth, earlier you spoke about a doctor, I think, prescribing your doctor an inhaled steroid, and that you decided not to do that. Can you guys speak a little bit about standing up for yourself in that sort of situation when you're faced with maybe an expert, or Elizabeth, you were fortunate to have a mom who supported your decision, or a mom who, says, as Rachel said earlier, you were fine when you were a kid. What can we do to, to stand up for ourselves?
It was
Elizabeth,
a really,
yeah, I would love to hear your story.
Well, I was lucky that one thing happened that really was a red flag, and that was that the first allergist I went to put all these little pricks into Easton's body of different allergens, but the food section, Easton rubbed against my leg a little bit, that part that had been, that food part, because they do lots of little pricks of all different types of allergens, but the section that pertained to the food, Easton rubbed it a little bit on my leg. It was, they were all done on her back. When the doctor came in and gave us the diagnosis, I said, well, hold on a second. I said, she sort of rubbed, the food section, and I said, and you're telling me there's no food allergies, and you're immediately diagnosing her as, potentially asthmatic, but you're not even confirmed in that, but you're suggesting she should inhale on, twice a day through a nebulizer cortisone, and I'm really confused because we haven't even, answered if she has any food allergies. And he said, well, it'll be the same diagnosis if she has food allergies. And I found that to be so off-putting that if we were to find that she was allergic to shrimp and she loved shrimp, and we were to eliminate it, that he still would have prescribed cortisone for her to inhale on any given day that she was coughing. And I thought, God, everyone is just so trigger happy to just find easy solutions and make it go away and put Band-Aids on it, as opposed to being creative about solutions. I think that's what's so intimidating about, standing up for ourselves, as you said, is that it's going to require creativity on our part, because there are other solutions. There isn't just one solution to any problem. And so it's just going to require a little bit more, exploring before you, pronounce that your child is asthmatic or anything else, So I was lucky that, he behaved in that way. And then I went to another allergist who, really felt, she was more old school, and she really felt that there were some food allergies, and she did extensive food allergy testing, and And also, luckily, I had come from, my mother, like I pointed out, and I had a lot of food allergies as a child, and I didn't have to inhale cortisone. So, and what we discovered were there were, 3 significant allergies: peas, chocolate, and apples. So when we removed those 3, she stopped coughing. Why? Because, like, Rachel pointed out, probably because apples are full of pesticides. So then what? If you're going to have an apple, at least, go and find one that's organic. They're so sensitive, the kids, they react so quickly to these chemicals. So we're lucky. They're our map. They show us the way.
That's a great point. And being creative.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we can stand up for ourselves by just, embracing the fact that it's going to, we're on our own, and we have to look for support with like-minded people so we don't feel alone. So this is a community you can be a part of that, allows you to feel the support. You have any question at all, any of you that are listening, you can always turn to Healthy Child, Healthy World, because it's their job to have answers, and every day they get more answers to our many questions.
that is very true. And speaking of that, we're close to running out of time, but I think we have time for maybe 2 more quick questions. And we have a really great one from someone about BPA who says she's been really great, careful about avoiding it since she got pregnant and had her son, but now she's hearing that companies are just substituting other plastics that haven't been studied so that they can say they're BPA free. So that's very concerning. And Rachel, does Healthy Child looked into this issue? Is this something in the future we can turn to you for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it happens so much. It happens with pesticides. It happens so much where, one thing is on the watch list, and so another thing pops up. I think, what we really need to look at is a more comprehensive management policy, which is, what hopefully we'll have some legislation passed this year that will do that. But meanwhile, we will be looking into those, and I don't have any specific data on that right now. I do have, we do obviously do a lot of pieces as the news continues to break about BPA, because it really does. It is a story that continues to be in the news. But we also, rather than just reporting on it, we're also trying to give a unique twist on it, talking about making soup from scratch as opposed to using canned, or giving recipes. There are studies that have shown, and one of our longtime board members, Dr. Alan Green, actually wrote about this on our site. Studies that have shown that leafy greens can help help the body basically eliminate BPA. So these kinds of not just reporting the information, but also giving parents kind of helpful suggestions as to how to deal with the reality of our world, which is that we don't really have a strong chemical management policy, and we need it. And in the meantime, we need to figure out what we're going to do about it with our children. So that's kind of where we come into that story. But there is a lot on the site as well.
That's great, and that's very reassuring that you're looking for ways for us to deal with the reality of this world. And I just wanted to also just to comment on what Elizabeth said as well. We are in the process of developing a pediatrician and OBGYN outreach program, so that we haven't decided exactly how it's going to work, but it will be a way that that parents can bring information to their pediatricians, or pregnant women can bring information to their OBGYNs, or possibly we will have information in those offices that can communicate with parents who may not know about these subjects. So that's something that we're really working on, because I think, as Elizabeth, you're a very strong person. You have the ability to say, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying, doctor. I'm going to go get a second opinion. But for many of us, that's a difficult thing to do, to challenge your pediatrician. So I think as we realize that as an organization, I think that's one of the next steps for us, is really creating a tool that parents and doctors can really use to kind of share this type of information. Great. We'll look forward to that. You know, we're just out of time here, so I want to thank everyone for coming. And as we sign off, Rachel and Elizabeth, could you, in the spirit of doing one small thing, can you share with us one small thing you both are going to do today?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Yeah, see, that's why we have to do these webinars, to challenge each other to become better every day. Oh God, well,
it doesn't even have to be a new
funny.
thing, just something you do.
You know, I'm just going to continue, you know, cleaning the clothes with non-toxic products, cleaning the house with non-toxic products, and making sure that Easton doesn't ingest anything with pesticides, and, you know, that we're eating organically.
That's great. Rachel, any last words and one small thing you'll do today?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm a little further down the parenting road than Elizabeth. My son is almost 13, so he tends to arrive at our house after school with, you know, at least one friend, and they pile into my house. And so the one thing that I'm always doing every single day is saying, take off your shoes, put your shoes at the door. So I will be doing that today with the stinky feet 13-year-old boys. And then, you know, just continuing to kind of do the things that Elizabeth had said, and also trying to, you know, continue spreading the word about Healthy Child and helping more parents start making these connections.
That's great. Thank you both so much. You've been so inspiring today, and I think I know the audience feels that way too. We're getting some wonderful thank you and great comments flowing in. So thanks to Rachel and Elizabeth.
And
Hi, you guys.
Thank you, Kiwi, for hosting. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Sarah.
My
Have a great
pleasure.
day, you guys. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, I know we're running out of time, but you can always email me, and it's Rachel, R-A-C-H-E-L, at healthychild.org. So
Great.
Send me your questions, and I will do my best to answer.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your
Okay,
day.
guys. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.